So about three and a half years ago, a committee, kind of a branch of the school board, it involved 3 school board members, was formed called the Governance and Sustainability Committee. And the focus at that time was really to look at how we could sustain the school and exhaust all the options in terms of research of what those possibilities might exist. We spent most of our time, I think, looking at understanding our relationship with our supervisory union, to understand what the costs were that we were paying in terms of assessment and the services for those assessments, and also whether any other structure would be plausible for us. So could we look at an affiliation with a different supervisory union to both change that cost structure, but also to give us something that we were interested in, which was school choice, to give us the ability to provide school choice both on a K through 6 level, but possibly at a K through 12 level. And at that point, it was really exploratory, that we were both educating ourselves and trying to figure out what the options were. We met with our supervisory union, we hired an educational consultant, we visited other schools and other supervisory unions to try and learn as much as we could about what our options would be. And at the end of that process, we determined that our current affiliation was the best one for us at that time, that no other change seemed both plausible and helpful to us in terms of making a difference. And that school choice, though we were very interested in pursuing it, was a much more complicated venture on both levels, K through 6 and 7 through 12. The other thing I should mention that we did was we approached our neighboring school district, Shaftesbury, which is also a pre-K through 6 district, to talk about possibilities of consolidating both the North Bennington and Shaftesbury school districts into one that might be a K through 8 or pre-K through 8, or somehow to pool our resources and work together at that time. At the time, we are neighboring geographically. We both suffer from some of the same challenges, and at that time they weren't interested in kind of partnering with us. And so, but we wanted to exhaust every option, and so we looked into that as well. So as our work with the Governance and Sustainability Committee concluded, we were kind of left again thinking about other options. And last March, the school board, so this was March of 2010, right? 2010, decided to form a committee, or charge a committee to be formed called ISIS, the Independent School Investigatory Study Committee, to look at the possibility of an independent school and its viability for North Bennington. The product of part of our work with the Governance and Sustainability Committee was really this kind of thought that perhaps our only option was to become an independent school, or to have an independent school in North Bennington that would both offer choice for our families locally, but also be able to give us a structure that would ensure sustainability and allow us to be differently creative with kind of the growth and development of our school. So at that time, the committee was formed. There were 3 board members that sat on the committee. Tom sat on the committee as a member of the committee. I chaired the committee, 3 community members and 3 staff members, 3 teachers from the building. And I will mention at this time that throughout the process of the Governance and Sustainability Committee, as well as the ISIS Committee, one of the key efforts was to keep the staff really well informed of what our work was. So meeting regularly with them, talking with them about what we were doing and what our motivations were, and also eliciting their questions to make sure that they were part of the process. The committee formed, I think we had our first meeting in May. Our first charge was to, again, educate ourselves. We brought Darren on as a consultant. We also met with other members of boards and independent school agencies to learn as much as we could, both about the process that we would have to undertake to become an independent school, and also what we should know, and what the kind of challenges were, what the expectations were, what the problems were, and what we should be prepared to do. We quickly kind of moved to a phase of working towards our application. So there are 2 things we had to do. We had to develop an application to submit to the Department of Education for approval that would then go to the Board of Education for approval. And we had to engage our community, meaning our school district, in a vote to basically give authority to the school board, our prudential committee, to close our school as a public school, and then make the decision to entertain an independent school in lieu of that, so there would be that school locally that would serve as the school for our district. It would also offer choice, and then to set a tuition rate. We chose as a committee to kind of use the application process as a way to really delve into what the formation and structure of our school would be. And then simultaneously, starting in June, engaged our community locally in ongoing conversations through community meetings and dialogues about our independent school process. So in June, as you can imagine, as we were at the beginning of this, it was much about the process and concept of it. By September, we were really talking about what the school would look like and why we believed. At this point, we had made the decision as a committee. An independent school was both a viable option and it was the right option for North Bennington. And from September through March, through the vote, we're meeting kind of in any way, shape, or place that we could with community members and educating them about what we believed would be the right direction for the local community, and to really engage them in this conversation about what they wanted to have happen with their school locally. I should mention that before we started this as part of the governance and sustainability work, we had surveyed the community about kind of the importance of the school, and one of the things we heard resoundingly was that this community wanted there to be a local school in North Bennington, and that helped us kind of muster our efforts to keep this work going. So at the same time, we submitted the Prudential Committee developed a ballot agenda item for the voters to consider in March. And I realize I skipped ahead, but we go back to it. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. To vote on in March. So we needed the community to vote on this question about the school and figure out if this was something they supported, which they did. And we both increased our voter participation twofold and also had a 70% support of an independent school back in March when we voted. At that time, we also submitted our application to the Department of Education. You may know that in June, the Board of Education did entertain through the consent agenda, or the agenda for the Board of Education meeting, our application. In May, sorry. And at that point, they made the decision to table. They have the feeling that it was, these are their words, not mine, incomplete. And I think in retrospect, felt that the special ed portion of the application was not fulfilled. Though one of the things we know by statute is that we weren't required to have a special ed application on the table at that time. We have since resubmitted an application for consideration for the August 21st meeting. We know today that that application has been forwarded from the Department of Education for the consideration of the Board of Education in the August meeting, which is August 21st. And we have every indication to believe that that will pass in that meeting. It will mean that the local community will need to vote once again to charge the Prudential Committee with all the decisions that they had last time, and with the hope that we would be opening in fall of 2013.